有些人呢，就是戒心很高，所以在沟通上面，我们要如何用一些技巧，让别人先卸下一些心防呢？Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Today's episode is going to be short, but really important.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at how to keep someone from getting defensive. We all know those people, or even ourselves, depending on the day, depending on the mood, as soon as someone brings something up, your wall of defense may just immediately go up. Now, sometimes it can't be helped. But sometimes with a little bit of tact and the right wording, you can prevent this wall from just shooting up and turning what should be a basic conversation into an argument. Well, today's inspiration comes from a lawyer, someone who probably has people put their defenses up around them all the time. And he talks about what are 3 basic steps you can use to prevent someone from getting defensive.
We definitely have to credit these information to Jefferson Fisher, and I'll have his information in the handout. 那本身是一个 personal injury lawyer. 那他就提到了一个3点，就是你要如何，就有3种不同的技巧，也就是在沟通上面让人家能够卸下心防，尤其是当你可能要讲一些，或者是要讨论一些比较不是那么 comfortable 的一些主题。Now let's go to the first one. Agree first, right? So I thought this is very smart, and I especially like it when he mentioned that you don't actually need to say that you agree with the conversation, because obviously sometimes you just cannot agree. But you can actually just say, I agree that we need to talk about this.
Yes, this sounds very counterintuitive, where the first thing that you are trying to do is have a disagreement or show that you don't agree with something they say. But it's really interesting because when you start with an agreement, not agree with what they said, but you start by framing out something you both can agree on, now it stops the person from thinking you're just there to fight. But you also haven't committed to what they've asked. So you don't go up to the conversation and be like, I completely agree with you, but it's actually more along the lines of, I agree this is something that's critical to the future of blah, blah, blah. Or I agree we really need to take the time and talk about this. So you're starting with an agreement rather than an argument, and this just opens up someone's willingness to talk to you. To further this, I actually remember on the YouTube channel, The Art of Charm, he breaks down how Jon Stewart, former host of The Daily Show, who used to go on Fox News, right? If you know anything about US politics, Fox News and The Daily Show are complete opposite sides of the scale. But Jon Stewart would go onto Fox News and talk to Bill O'Reilly or the big talking heads. And he would do something in order to keep the conversation going, is he would agree 3 times before he ever turned around the conversation. So he would always go, okay, in your statement, I agree with this, I agree with this, I agree with this, but here's something I want to push back on. But because he always opened with those 3 agreements, people were less willing to just stop themselves from talking.
And sometimes you can even say that, oh, I agree that both of us are very passionate about this topic, right? 有的时候可能对方已经想要开始吵起来了，情绪上面比较 a bit more heightened than you wanted. But you can agree that how you're both very passionate about this topic and you wanted to sit down and talk about it.
So that brings you to the second step. After you have agreed on something, then you can frame out something that you have learned from listening to them. This is back to that idea of active listening or showing the other side that you understand where they're coming from by framing out something you've learned. Like, what I have learned from what you just said is this. Now, what I have learned could be your passion. What I could have learned is some fact that I didn't have before or some piece of information I didn't before. But it shows the person, I'm listening to you, right? Don't shut down yet. I'm actually getting your points.
Yeah, exactly. 那其实我觉得这个用在中文的聊天当中也蛮有用的。我今天学到了什么？当你说，我学到了什么，对方可能就会觉得 at least they're contributing something. They're giving something very knowledgeable in this conversation. 这样子会让对方很容易就可以卸下心防。Now, the last one is kind of similar to the second one, is to mention what has been very helpful. The word helpful is such a positive word, similar to agree and learn, because helpful, it just means that the other person is offering something very insightful and something that could actually help this conversation. So you could say that, oh, what you told me about your side of the story has been very helpful.
So this is partly like validating or acknowledging that this person has taken part in the conversation, right? Back to, if we're going to have an argument, usually I have turned off my ears to anything that you have to say. I'm not willing to validate because maybe I'm worried that, by validating something you have said, I am giving up ground on my own argument. And this is how you end up with just like yelling at a brick wall situation. So by opening this up and just showing, oh, this was very helpful, or your contribution on this was really critical, right? You're validating that the other person is contributing to this conversation, and it's keeping them from just closing up and being like, oh, you're not listening to anything I'm saying. You don't care anything I have done. I am done talking about it. Right? Yeah. Like that's the ultimate defense when someone's just like, you don't listen to me, you don't agree with anything that I have done, you don't think that I've put anything useful into this. That is just a sign that that person is closed up for that argument. But having these three things, one, opening with agreement. Two, showing that you have learned something, there's an active listen, and mention that they have been helpful in some ways to this conversation, keeps them open for what is probably the more difficult part, which is what comes next, where you need to get into a discussion about changes or find compromises.
And I think another word that you can also replace helpful with is useful. Right? 我觉得任何的这个如果它比较有正面的一些字的话，我都可以觉得可以拿过来利用。那当然了，我觉得这个并不一定要把它当成一个步骤，你觉得时机对了，你就可以用其中任何一个的技巧来使用。So either you want to agree or tell them what you've learned or tell them what's been helpful or useful. I think any of these tips would be very helpful in this situation.
So the next time that you feel someone get defensive, again, just use the 3 steps. Agree on something, like we need to talk about this, then share something you have learned from what they have said, and then tell them what has been helpful in the conversation. Then once they let their defenses down a bit, you can have the real talk. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.